everybody, I'm Mango Thunderslice, and today's video is FIB, Liars, Disinformation, Insurance, and Intelligence. Hunter Biden's October surprise, right? Of course, the dam is finally broken, and the internet controllers have finally learned about one of the prime aspects of the digital age, which is the Streisand effect, which is that as soon as you try and control something, as soon as you try and ban that book, it inevitably comes 1,000 times more popular than it may have otherwise been, because now people are interested just because it's against the rules, right? You know, I work in the cannabis industry. It's funny how actually youth use has actually declined, at least among, certain categories. There's more vaping, but there's far less of, flower, because it's not as exciting anymore. It's not illegal. It's just, my mom's smoking, right? It's like, same thing happened with Facebook, right? Facebook and social media back in the original days, it was very rebellious and free and anarchic, and there were controls, meaningful controls at certain points, but they weren't designed to stifle the conversation. They were designed to allow it to proceed and expand at an exponential rate. But, it was always, there's a reason that there's all these national security connections to big tech, and there's a reason that they're so quick to censor the story about Hunter Biden's laptop being dropped off and forgotten, as crackheads often do if they have laptops to begin with. But because 3 laptops with liquid damage, I could only imagine the incident that some of the news outlets were saying it was water damage. Others, I think, just said it was liquid. I have a hard time believing that Hunter Biden was just drinking some purified distilled water. I imagine it was probably some other liquid. But this is like, it's the October surprise that we were waiting for. I guess there have been many of a smaller sort, but this would definitely seem to be sort of Pizzagate Redux, WikiLeaks Redux rather, but it seems to be pizza related in that regard, as Joshua Williams, the top FBI agent who signed the subpoena to confiscate and request the laptop or the hard drive, is the FBI's top lawyer and agent for CP matters. Yes, and hopefully you understand what that stands for, but I have a hard time getting the algorithm to recognize me at all without using words like that in a video. But suffice to say that there is probably underage material on this laptop, and it is incriminating on that level. And the reason that this is even bigger than Pizzagate and WikiLeaks is because this is direct, tangible evidence. I mean, and also, the reason I chose FIB rather than lie for the video title is because it's an anagram of a very certain federal agency, right? This one federal agency that can't find a single reason for its existence, right? Yes, they have, we've got all these agents attached to these very important things, and what do? Okay, now he's requisitioned a laptop. When were we going to see the information if it was not leaked privately to the media, the ones that are still even halfway competent and halfway uncompromised to actually release the information, right? When were we going to hear about this, Director Wray? When was this going to come out? It's just a fucking joke, and this is going to be a salty video. There's just no way around that. This is not deep philosophy. This is fuck the other side and all of their commie little bullshit. For 5 fucking years we've been listening to this Russiagate nonsense, and they're trying to pull it again. And I'm saying, even if it's inevitable, we gotta nuke the living bejesus out of this narrative right now. We've gotta meme it into fucking oblivion on day one. Sorry for the getting intense, but this is really it. We're only a few days from the election at this point, and it very much seems that Trump is going to win as predicted, and hopefully it'll be by that large enough margin that we can call it on election night and not be swayed by all the fraudulent harvested ballots that'll inevitably seep in over the following days. Like the numerous House races in 2018 that were solidly in the red for the Republican side and the candidate, and then basically, 1 week, 2 weeks later, all of a sudden they've flipped because all of these mysterious votes came in, right? And they say that fraud doesn't exist, but really they're the masters of fraud. The Democrats have been masters of fraud for a long time. And again, the Republicans have their issues, and I'm at war with the neocons still to this day. But again, if you could see with clear eyes, brother, you would see that Trump is the greatest agent for peace this world has ever had at that level of power, bar none. And if you have a coherent argument against that, then give it to me. What, Saudi Arabian funding for Yemen, right? That was going on before, and it's eventually coming to an end through sheer Saudi incompetence, as many things often do, right? And eventually even their oil will run out as well, but that's for another day and another video. But in any case, it's not directly attributable, and the amount of conflicts avoided or otherwise played down or just defused in general so far outweighs the very, very minor things in just appeasing the military-industrial complex. But again, if you could see with clear eyes, you'd see that exactly that action is what is keeping Trump alive and preventing the same mistake that Kennedy made and got him, again, the solution for some, that came to pass and what transpired. Because Kennedy pissed off everybody all at once, including the military-industrial complex in the middle of a nuclear Cold War, right? So he didn't have the protection that he needed. All of his top guards turned against him, essentially. Why did that happen? It's because he didn't think strategically. He was an ideologue. As much as I love the man, he was a total ideologue. He would have handed over United States sovereignty to the United Nations in a heartbeat to prevent nuclear war. Surely a valid and noble moral purpose. But does it essentially, does it make it the correct action in a long-term sense? Not necessarily, but, we don't have to micromanage Kennedy. It's been many years since then, but we can analyze what's right here in our present moment, which is a man who has pulled us out of Iraq, a man who has pulled us out of Afghanistan, a man who stared down Kim Jong-un and basically eventually met with him and crossed into North Korean territory. I mean, absolutely historic overtures, even if they're not concluded. The trade war with China, again, is an absolutely inevitable pressure release valve for the actual conflict that would have otherwise been built. For the people that are always crying about Trump being the agent of the new Cold War, there will be a resolution, and it comes down to free energy, and it comes to the disclosure of that technology, which will happen regardless because private citizens are bringing it to the forefront. And at a certain point, even if it's only the day before or even the day after private citizens bring free energy to the forefront, but it will happen. And the point that I'm making is that the private citizenry is getting closer every single year to that singularity. And the fact that I, an English major, can explain the physics of it to you more clearly than a professor of physics can explain to you relativity is a sign of that time. The zeitgeist is almost complete in its transition from one world into the next. And for the old booze-soaked potato brain boomers who still think that Russia has any legitimacy whatsoever, I'm sorry, it's time to cut the line and just let the boat float out to sea, because I've got no use for you. After all the fucking ultimatums that I've seen, again, I'm not even on Facebook, I haven't been for 6 years, but the things I hear about, these pissant little fucking ultimatums that every single liberal in my extended friend and family network from high school, if you believe in homophobia or you believe in racism, just unfriend me now because I'll just unfriend you anyway. Like, who gives a fuck, bitch? Jesus Christ. It's a fucking social media. Like, the amount of politics and drama between just my own direct family and unfriendings on social media is absolutely monolithically hilarious. And again, it's a sign of that stunted, immature worldview that never went through its rite of passage, that never learned the cosmic rights, and never learned how to integrate itself with the physical world, and to find that essentially anamnesis, right? This is a word that Ken Wheeler uses a lot, and I never really kind of clicked on what it means. If amnesia is the act of forgetting, anamnesis is the act of remembering. If amnesia is losing one's identity, anamnesis is gaining one's own true identity, right? They placate themselves and entertain themselves with a smorgasbord of false identities. Again, you can be any sex you want, you can be any color you want, you can be anything you want, as long as you don't challenge the party orthodoxy, right? It's just a glorious transgender communism that they'd like us all to be in. And, in a certain sense, they achieve it in their little enclaves, and we see what that, basically what the fruit of that tree is. It's, what was it? CHOP or CHAZ, the autonomous zone. It's just a bunch of incompetent morons all professing and opining about how they need to be sovereign when none of them are actually providing services or value. It's like, for Christ's sake, this is, again, all the Marxists that have ever lived are just these half-ass, mid-wit, pseudo-intellectuals just opining about things with language that sounds intelligent to lord it over others. It's a social, extrinsic, aspect of the literature. There's no... my wife and I were talking about English majors. I was like, every English major, I instantly know when I hear that about a person is that they're an introvert. Because an extrovert doesn't actually love literature. They never can, right? They'll use it as an extrinsic force against other people. But they never actually enjoy the internal world because it is terrifying to them. It is a world of trauma, and again, they thrive on that amnesia, on people forgetting, and of people just living in a false identity so that they can gain power for themselves. Again, it's completely about a social relative reality, that relativity in full swing. And communist pedophile traitor owned by foreign intelligence, Adam Schiff, right, who is now out there saying this is propaganda from the Kremlin, and there's propaganda from the Kremlin, and literally not a single statement of fact, not a single statement of, this is, they're not even referencing or gesturing to a single piece of intelligence. Some of, the senators and congressmen, they're referencing, I've seen the intel, like Chris Murphy of, Delaware, Connecticut, who cares? One of these people that eventually just needs to get thrown out of the Senate just immediately, but... that's up for the people on the East Coast, not essentially out here. We've got our own battles to fight out here for sure. But, I've seen the intel. And then Director of National Intelligence, what's his name? John Ratcliffe comes out this morning on Maria Bartiromo and says, there is no intelligence that we have that says this is a Russian disinformation campaign. Just drops a bomb on it right there, which gets me a good golf clap, right, for Ratcliffe. Well done, sir. It is very nice to see. And of course, if the statement of the intelligence community is so valid, as we've been told for the last 5 years, well, then I'm sure this will be taken with the gravity and seriousness that it deserves by the mainstream media, right? No. They are all commie pedophile traitors. They are all owned by foreign intelligence, and they are all being revealed in real time in slow drip fashion on full parade right before the election, and it is glorious. And, again, this is a very real spiritual battle. I know people, they still don't get my enjoyment of Trump, but he is truly the avatar of this transition. And, whether or not you agree with everything he has done, if you are a person who admires the heroic spirit in man, you have to give credit to Trump because he is an absolutely prime specimen of an alpha, of the heroic spirit in man, just crusading against the forces that are arrayed against him. Absolutely glorious to have watched it. And, the fact that, again, he kept us out of a war, that was pretty much my prime concern. The fact that he checked that box, it's like, all right, dude, I'll give you another 4. You win this round. And, because we won this round. And it will keep going. The internet cannot be stopped. The Streisand effect just got reproven in glorious fashion with this whole case. And it's not even done. Again, there's probably a lot more on that laptop. And who knows if we would have ever heard about it were it not for, just heroic patriotic Americans like the laptop repair shop owner, John Paul Mac Isaac, who, even tried to contact Hunter Biden like multiple times over months and months and months, and then several months later, it never got paid for. You basically got stiffed for the bill. It's like, all right, well, under Delaware law, this is now my property. So basically, just kind of contacted the FBI. They did nothing. And now the funny thing is that Hunter Biden's own lawyer has now directly corroborated the story by requisitioning the laptop from the repair shop, to which the guy said, the horse has left the stables, bro. It's with the FBI. Like, are you kidding? Like, you're going to come and request it now? Because if Biden's story was true, that it was all just a fake smear campaign and propaganda of the Kremlin without evidence, a claim without evidence, as they love to say, he would not be, there would be no requisitioning or demanding of the hard drive. They would just ignore it. There would be some public statement to prove that it was not true, but of course it is true. It's all absolutely true. And what is, the Ukraine side of the equation just shows that Biden is corrupt at the highest levels and will, basically sell influence to gain favors for certain corrupt parties, right? That's kind of almost run-of-the-mill and what people kind of understood. This does corroborate that Joe Biden himself was directly involved and using Hunter as an intermediary. This was not Hunter playing games. There's a reason that he flew on Air Force 2 to China. And this was not Hunter just being, scheming behind his father's back. He was being used by his father as a pawn to gain favors during office without actually reaping the benefit directly. That's what everyone suspected. Otherwise, why would you even pay that much money for, influence? $83,000 a month? I mean, don't you think you could negotiate a little bit better price than that? But it's, of course, grift at the very highest levels. And the Ukraine, again, side is just corruption. The Chinese side, again, these are the prime competing power for the United States and national security threat in a very objective sense. Not to say that they're threatening actively right now, but, they are the number 2 world power trying to be the number 1 world power. It's that simple. And there should be no war. There should be no conflict. But in order for that to happen, we need to address the problems that are underlying in our own country so that we can have that effective leadership and interface with the leadership of other countries, whether they're communist or not, right? And that's the way that Trump has treated the game, and I think it's been admirable again. And I think that there's a reason that China wants Joe Biden to win, because they will own him, right? He went to China and he used his son as an intermediary for a $1.5 billion deal in private equity. This is a national security threat. Joe Biden is not just a threat because he's corrupt. He's a threat because he's literally a traitor. He will sell out this country and its safety and its military and territorial integrity to China, our principal competitor on the world stage, from just a geopolitical point of view. And, that is just really astounding that after all the Russiagate bullshit and shenanigans that we've heard, we still basically don't have any reality in people's minds that, there's no evidence that they can point to, right? They'll just reference emails. But again, if emails are the standard and statements of the intelligence community, then we now have already met and exceeded the standard and threshold of evidence that is required to get Russiagate started in the first place. And if they can basically start an entire theory, based off of, campaign smear disinformation, well, then this is, again, it started on the Hillary Clinton side last time and it became Russiagate. And it's even if it's true that it's all just Kremlin propaganda, if there's actual photos and videos and real documents and emails, then, again, the question is, are they true? Are they accurate? Not whether or not it came and hacked from the Kremlin, which, of course, there's no evidence for it again. You don't have to be a Russian hacker to realize that crackheads do stupid shit and they leave things behind. And, basically Hunter is a crackhead with hundreds of millions of dollars to play with because he is a little pawn for his daddy to play his, geopolitical grift games with. And, for, again, the booze-soaked boomers that think this would be a good president, they can get fucked at this point. And that's just a very simple fact and a statement as a freedom-loving American, regardless of where these people stand within my current or former friend and family network. It's very, very simple, because I will not sacrifice anything to compromise the future of my daughters. And I will do anything at all to ensure that their future is prosperous. And so if that means cutting out all the toxic, people who are mind controlled by the same bullshit and, nonsense, if you, basically watch the mainstream media in any serious fashion, basically it's curtains for you, bud. Like, I know who I'm talking to with you guys here. Obviously, you guys are more on the other side of the spectrum, or, probably think I'm more of a normie at this point just for supporting Trump. But it's fine. It's all going to be fine because the people are awakening and it's not slowing down. It is a cosmic process, and I'm glad to be partaking and contributing to that process. So I encourage you guys to share the information, have a good spirit, because good things are coming even despite the chaos. And if you are prepared for all outcomes, you have nothing to fear. You have only to get prepared and to get excited and to get ready for what's to come. Because with chaos comes opportunity, as their side and our side should know by now. So that's my video today. Also, Nancy Pelosi last out at Wolf Blitzer. Last just kind of funny aspect. She's still blocking the stimulus because basically McConnell's holding out over the bailouts of the state, pension funds, and basically corrupt, completely defunct and bankrupt state coffers, right, from all these basically just state level grift programs. They've offered $1.8 trillion, and she says that's not enough. We feed the people on the streets, Wolf. If you guys haven't seen it, it's just glorious. And it just shows that basically as much as they hate Trump, they are Trump if questioned, right? If they are challenged even in the slightest, they basically turn into that snarling, snippety attack dog. And I wouldn't even say that Trump is a snarling, snippety attack dog, but he definitely has to be an attack dog of certain kinds to respond to all the bullshit that's been said against him. When you have the entire array of the conventional legacy media arrayed against you, you have to have a means of responding. And he did that. And he's the reason that now they're closing the the social media down, and they're basically throwing it all into chaos and just flagrantly violating Section 230 of their communications immunity, right? By censoring this article. They're absolutely a publisher by censoring this article. There's no evidence it was hacked. And even when they put out that thing that said, we have the right to completely take down material that is of a hacked origin, you almost knew that, they know something's coming, and they're setting this up preemptively just so they can declare something hacked and then arbitrarily remove it from the platform. All right. Meanwhile, COVID skeptic books written by, reputable authors and journalists are getting censored that are skeptical of COVID. So we're really entering the next phase, and our control over our own resources and information and systems in general is going to be absolutely pinnacle in this coming phase that is really already here. So again, that is where we should be focusing most of our time and effort and action, but at the same time, you've got to enjoy the charade as it continues. But within a fictional presentation, much truth can be shown, right? As conventional theater since the days of Greece and Sophocles, right? So that's my video today. Hope you all are having a good one, and I'll see you next time. Peace.